Helen was reflecting on her middle school days. She grew up being looked down upon by her parents, who were obsessed with her handsome and talented older brother. When she was in middle school, she decided to run away from home and was raised by her grandparents for 10 years. When Helen moved to her grandparents' house, her parents and brother didn't contact her at all. However, one day, when Helen's marriage was decided, her parents came to visit her after a decade. What shocking words did her parents say when they saw Helen, who had gone through a dramatic change? And what kind of revenge will Helen take on her parents? Parents only dote on my handsome, capable brother. I ran away. Shocking words from my parents 10 years later. 10 years ago, when I was in junior high school, my parents didn't show any interest in me and only doted on my handsome and talented brother who was obsessed with anime. I was openly looked down upon and compared to my brother, which was really painful. Eventually, I decided to run away from home, and for the past 10 years, I've been taken care of by my grandparents. Finally, I have a chance to be happy. And today, I want to tell you about the past 10 years of my life.
Just hearing the beginning of your story, I can tell that your life has been extraordinary.
Running away from home as a junior high school student must have been really tough. There were many conflicts I faced before I left, and I also had a feeling of not wanting to lose. But I thought I could be happier leaving my parents and brother like that than living with them. And that idea turned out to be absolutely right. My grandparents were really kind to me, and now I think of them as my parents.
Are your grandparents your mom's or dad's parents?
They're my mom's parents. My brother and I were always compared to each other since I was a kid. My grandparents noticed that and said to me,
"If things get too tough, just come to us anytime."
They would say things like that to me, and they gave me their contact information. So I decided to run away and contacted them right away, and then took the train to their house. It might bring up bad memories, but what was it like being compared to your brother? My brother was handsome, and even as his younger sister, I knew he was popular. He was also really smart. Everyone thought highly of him. A lot of people from all generations expected a lot from him. Because of his good looks, he would get a lot of compliments. He would humbly accept them, saying things like, "I still have a long way to go." But in front of me, he would show his true colors and say things like, "If you were as good-looking and talented as I am, your life would be much easier." He would look down on me for not paying enough attention to my appearance as a girl. By the way, he showed his true colors in front of our parents too, but for some reason, they seemed happy when he looked down on me. What your older brother said is really true. You're a girl, but your appearance is kinda meh. You know, your mom is beautiful, so why do you look like that? Well, I guess you just got a lot of my DNA. You are also quite handsome, darling. You have to work hard to become prettier, Helen. And speaking of hard work, you should be able to manage your studies on your own, Helen. You should learn from your brother more. Your grades last time were terrible. If your looks are no good, then you gotta compete with your brain. After all, women aren't valued if they are not pretty. You have to be able to live on your own. You should study more. They've always been denying me like this. It's been like that since I was little. It's been really damaging to my self-esteem. Growing up in a family like this is like torture.
Those aren't the words you say to a young child.
I can't believe those are the words they say to their daughter.
Maybe my parents never really thought of me as their daughter. They would make comments like, "We only needed your brother." Back then, I used to take every word seriously and be hurt by them. I would cry alone a lot. I wish I could go back in time and tell my child self that it's going to be okay and that I can be happy.
It's making me cry just thinking about it.
What led you to decide to run away from home?
It was when my parents hurt me badly by constantly comparing me to my brother. We don't need an ugly and stupid daughter. Even though they said it like it was a joke, I took it seriously. I thought, I don't need parents like this. After that, I immediately contacted my grandparents. Even when my parents realized that I was leaving, they didn't try to stop me at all. In fact, they said, "Ah, finally, she's gone. Now we can be with our son." I left home crying. I can't believe that there are really parents who are that horrible.
I can't help but think how awful it must have been for Helen. She was just in middle school.
I try not to think about that time too much because it was so painful. But because of my actions back then, I have the happiness I have now. I'm really glad to be alive and that I can be happy for the first time in 10 years.
I'm so happy for you.
What did your grandparents say?
I think they were really angry with my parents deep down. I saw them call my parents a few times, but they didn't talk about my parents in front of me because they knew I didn't like that. Anyway, they tried their best to watch over me so that I wouldn't be hurt. Thanks to them, I was able to graduate from high school without straying. You can't thank them enough.
I'm really glad you had people like them.
Yeah, I'm really grateful that I didn't have to go to a facility. My grandparents are older now than they were back then, but they still want me to be happy. So I want to repay them now that I'm an adult and I can do it.
By the way, haven't you seen or talked to your parents in the past 10 years?
I'm curious to know also. I haven't seen them or talked to them at all. They didn't even congratulate me when I graduated from middle school and entered high school. There was no contact when I graduated from high school and got a job as a yoga instructor. Of course, they've never come to see me. I think they've forgotten about me. What a shame.
They don't deserve to have kids.
You should forget about them too, Helen.
Yeah, I only consider my grandparents as my only family. I actually don't want my parents to contact me. I don't really want to meet them or talk to them now. And there's nothing I want to tell them.
You said it was your chance for happiness. Did something special happen?
Oh, right. I need to tell you about that. I have been dating my boyfriend for a while, and we've decided to get married. He's someone very important to me, and it's like a dream come true to become a family with him.
You can't choose your family when you're born, but you can choose your partner.
I'm so glad you found someone nice. He knows everything about my past, and he really cares about me. He's also very kind to my grandparents and already feels like family. Just meeting someone like him has made it possible for me to overcome my unhappy past. If I think of my difficult past as something that I had to go through to meet him, I feel like I can overcome anything now.
I'm getting emotional hearing about your engagement after learning about your history.
Have you told your parents about the engagement? I'm not sure if I should tell them, but my grandparents might bring it up. They seem to be in contact with each other without me knowing, probably for my sake.
I bet you can't help but get mixed feelings even if they do or don't contact you.
I want them to leave you alone already. I've been able to overcome things so far, so no matter what happens from here on out, I'll be okay. I'm glad I could open up to you guys about my past. I usually can't do this. It feels like I can finally settle things from the past. I hope my marriage goes well, and I'd appreciate it if you could wish me so. I wish you all the happiness in the world.
I want you to have a happy family.
Some followers learned about Helen's difficult past and hoped that she would finally have a happy family. Even though she had her own tough past, it seems like Helen hasn't given up on happiness, which is heartwarming. After a while, Helen came back to the site and it looks like there was a new development.
After not hearing from my parents for 10 years,
They contacted me when they heard about my engagement.
So, they finally contacted you.
I'm really curious about what they said.
I didn't give them my phone number, so my mother must have contacted my grandmother. My grandparents told my mother that I was getting married. And then, my surprised mother called my grandmother to ask about it. This is what I heard. Is it true that she's getting married?
Yeah, just as I said. He's a really great guy, and we've been treated very well by him.
I can't believe she's getting married before her brother. I can't believe it.
She's finally going to be happy. Please don't get in the way of that.
Of course not. I want to see Helen and meet her boyfriend.
I don't know if she'll allow it. You haven't contacted her for the past 10 years.
I know that, but I was hoping to start seeing her from now on. It's been difficult to find the right timing. Thanks to you, though, I'm still connected to Helen like this.
I'll ask Helen, but don't expect a good answer.
Yeah, just ask her, please. When I first heard the story, I felt disgusted, but I quickly changed my mind and agreed to meet with my parents.
They're so selfish.
Why meet them when it's better not to?
it's to show them how much I've changed in the past 10 years.
There's no way I'll be looked down on like I was in junior high.
I'm confident enough to say that I've really changed in this 10 years.
I'm curious about how your parents will react when they see the drastic changes in you.
I guess it's sort of like revenge on your parents.
Yeah, I'm going to make them regret for abandoning me. I don't know if it'll work out, but I think they'll be surprised to see me now. I'll definitely make them regret not keeping in touch.
Your revenge plan sounds interesting.
Let us know the results.
My parents are coming to my grandparents' house next week, so I'll come back to let you guys know. I believe it'll work out well. The followers were confused by the sudden turn of events, but after hearing about Helen's plan, they became very interested.
Will the revenge after 10 years really be successful?
And finally,
The result of the 10-year reunion between Helen and her parents will be revealed. Hey everyone, I just met my parents after 10 years.
today I want to tell you everything that happened during that time. I'd appreciate it if you could listen till the end.
Welcome back, Helen. We were waiting for your update.
Let's hear your result of revenge.
First of all, my honest impression after meeting them after 10 years
Was that both of them looked really worn out, which surprised me. They were nothing like they used to when they boasted about having a handsome and successful son and were full of confidence. I immediately sensed that something had happened. On the other hand, my parents' reaction was as expected. Are you really, Helen? You've become so tall and beautiful. I can't believe it's really you, Helen. You're unrecognizable. Yeah, really. You're even prettier than your mother when she was your age. I was a little excited to hear those words and thought that my hard work had paid off. Thanks. You two look like you've lost some weight. How's my brother doing? When I asked that, my parents' faces suddenly darkened. Actually, he failed his university entrance exams and has been acting differently since then. He's been taking his frustration out on us and has become a recluse in his room. Your brother has really let himself go. He doesn't even look like himself anymore. He doesn't work. He's just eating and sleeping all day. The reliable brother we used to know is gone. I was honestly surprised when I heard about his information, but when I found out he was going through a rough time, I couldn't help feeling a little happy. It's kind of funny to see him hit rock bottom.
His brilliance has become a past glory.
It must have been shocking for your parents.
My parents seem to be struggling with the gap between their ideals and reality. But I think the person who's suffering the most is my brother himself. He's become disillusioned because his life has turned out to be the complete opposite of what he envisioned. So it's not surprising. Well, you could also say it's his own fault. That's part of the reason why my parents were stunned to see me change so drastically. Helen, I heard you're getting married. Who's the lucky guy? We're all dying to meet him. He's waiting in the living room. Why don't you come in? I told them that and led them from the front door into the living room. By the way, my grandparents were there too, silently watching over us.
Finally, the moment of truth.
It's funny that they seem like they're ready to be wowed.
I have to admit, my fiancé is a pretty good-looking guy, and even my parents were surprised by him. They probably weren't expecting much from my fiancé since he's marrying me. Well. Looks like Helen caught a good one. She's looking pretty gorgeous. It's only natural that a great guy like him would end up with her. My parents had never said anything good about me, so I was kind of shocked, but also pleased. Nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you from Helen. He greeted them with a smile, but what he's heard from me about my parents were pretty terrible stories. Noticing that, my parents couldn't keep their heads up. After the introductions were finished, my parents did a complete turnaround. I can't believe Helen's partner is such a handsome and successful entrepreneur at such a young age. I mean, I'm really surprised that my daughter is marrying such a great guy. I always thought her older brother would get married first. I'm really surprised too. It's great to see Helen so happy. We've been living apart for 10 years, but it's a relief that we were able to reunite like this. As I watched my parents speak with smiles on their faces, I honestly felt like I was about to throw up, but I tried my best to respond with a smile. I never thought I would be this happy. I'm grateful to be alive for the first time. I knew my words were full of sarcasm.
Great job, Helen.
I can smell the scent of revenge. My parents coughed, trying to cover up the awkwardness. Well, back then, Helen had to go through some difficult times, but now she seems so happy. Her partner seems like a responsible person, so we can rest easy now, right, honey? Yes, that's right. I always thought Helen could do anything. But I never expected her to find such a great man. I'm so proud of her. As I watched my parents talk like this, I'm sure my fiancé must have been disgusted by them. Helen is a truly wonderful woman. She's strong, bright, and kind. I almost feel like I'm not good enough for her. She must have had a great upbringing. That's what my fiancé said, praising my grandparents and sarcastically passing on some criticism to my parents. Good job, fiancé.
That is too funny.
But the interesting part was from here on. I have no idea what they were thinking, but they brought up something unexpected. We had always been hoping the best for Helen, not her older brother. It's great that we can reunite like this. We're happy that we can be a family again. That's right. Hey, if it's okay with you, would you like to live with us? We're renting, so when you and your fiancé get married, we can come live with you. At that moment, both my fiancé and I froze. Even my grandparents, who were listening, had their eyes wide open. That's crazy.
How dare they say that?
That's what I thought too. If my brother doesn't turn out good, then they turn to me. How shitty is that? So I finally let out all my frustration straight out. You two both say the most convenient things, do you? You're not really serious about living together, are you? Of course we're serious. We're family, so it's not strange for us to live together. Yeah, if we're really a family. But I already feel like we're not a family anymore. Why would you say that? Neither of you came to visit me even once in the past 10 years. You didn't even care about me, did you? Grandma told me everything, you know. Besides, since the day I ran away, I never thought of you two as my family.
Helen, calm down. You're in front of your fiancé.
It's okay. He knows everything about how you treated me.
Okay, I understand. I'm sorry for laughing at you comparing you to your brother back then. That was not right.
Me too. I regret what we did to you. You're only saying that because I turned out decent and you thought my fiancé, a company president, would support you, right? Unfortunately, we don't plan to take care of you guys. We're planning to live with Grandma and Grandpa, though.
You are? Then, can't we come too?
Why do I have to live with someone who's not my family? Also, we're going to live in a house that we're buying soon, not this one. We don't plan on telling you our address either. Today is the last time we will ever meet.
What do you mean by last time?
Just what it means. I have no intention of ever seeing you two again.
Are you cutting ties with us? You're our daughter.
Don't make me say the same thing over and over again. We're not family anymore. You both abandoned me 10 years ago. Stop expecting me to be what you want just because my brother didn't turn out the way you wanted him to. Now, it's my turn to abandon you.
Abandon us? Please don't say that.
Yeah. It's because your older brother became an unemployed recluse that our savings are dwindling rapidly. We can't keep going like this. Well, that's your own fault. If you feel like he let you down, why not ask him directly instead of me? I mean, you take care of him, so it's reasonable to expect him to work.
No matter how many times we tell him, he won't leave his room.
In that case, there's no choice but to drag him out. I'm not going to lend a hand.
Helen, please. I'm begging you. Please forgive us for what happened in the past.
I'm sorry, but I won't forgive you for the rest of my life, and we can never go back to being a family again. When I said that, the room fell silent. My grandparents watched silently until the end, allowing me to say everything I wanted to say. My fiancé patted me on my shoulder when I finished speaking. Only my parents looked pale and bowed their heads.
A perfect revenge. They deserve to be abandoned.
After that, my grandparents helped my parents stand up and kick them out of the house.
Well, it seems like there's nothing left to say. So why don't you go back to your own home? You still have a son, so try to do something about that.
That's how they spoke to my parents. It seemed like they couldn't argue with me anymore, so they obediently went home. My revenge was finally over, and now I feel a great sense of relief. I think I will never forget the regretful faces of my parents at that time.
Great job, Helen.
That was awesome. I'm happy to report the results to you guys like this. From now on, I'll live a new life and I can say goodbye to those parents for real. I'm going to live a happy second life.
I hope your parents and older brother are miserable.
Wishing you the best, Helen.
And so, Helen brilliantly accomplished her revenge. The family who abandoned Helen 10 years ago ended up being abandoned by Helen this time, and her followers seemed to be very satisfied with this outcome. Helen herself must have been filled with a sense of accomplishment. The grandparents understood and watched over Helen's feelings, and her fiancé witnessed her revenge. Now, Helen can finally start her second life, and her followers wish for her happiness as they leave the site.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? Alright, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.